the people side of this, right? Yep, get the devices, get the routers, get that all going. But if you don't get the people side right, if teachers and leaders aren't prepared to use technology in like amazing ways, then it doesn't amount to much. So that's where we're spending a lot of time.
Welcome, everybody, back to another exciting episode of the UnDisrupted Podcast. Adam, you know, there's a little conference that's taking place. In fact, while you're listening to this recording, some of you may be attending the final day of it, the ISTE conference. And so when I attend conferences, and especially one like ISTE, which has lots of different choices and selections, I always try to think, how do you make the most out of it? So I'm going to ask you, Adam, when you go to a conference, what's your tips for making the most out of a conference that you attend at?
Adam's tips for a conference. You know what? My biggest thing is have a plan going into it. If you're trying to figure out what sessions you're going to when you go to the conference, it's a little too late for that. Like, you definitely want to make sure you download the app ahead of time. Go ahead and figure out what sessions you want to attend. Have a game plan, because I look at it this way. It's like going to a restaurant. If I know I want a steak, I'm going to go order me a steak. But if I'm hungry and I don't know what I want, everything on the menu looks good. I'm going to the menu. I really don't do. My wife does that more than I do. I'm sitting there like, come on, sweetie, figure out what you want. And she's like, I don't know. Everything looks so good. And so that's what you run into at a conference. If you don't have a game plan, you're spending all your time trying to figure out what sessions to go to, what tracks. But here's the other thing that I want to also encourage people to do. Is find that time in between sessions. Maybe when you're standing in the line for the restroom, whatever. Find your friends. I've made so many friends through. After a session, somebody said something, or they'll come to me, hey, you asked that question, or you made that comment, tell me more. And from there, really building that friendship, that PLN. But there's those conversations that happen after the sessions that are, I think, more important at times than some of the sessions, because you really get to meet those practitioners that are doing it and build that. What about you? I've said a lot. What about you?
I mean, I'll take that same analogy. I do like that. I like that viewpoint. And I should clarify, it's ISTE Live, because ISTE is the organization. But of course, it is called ISTE Live 22 this year. I think for me, I'll kind of riff on what you just said. And I just put out a post that's going out, I think on Monday, that is talking about ways to get the most out of the ISTE Live conference. And essentially, my big thing is what you were saying, Adam. So if you're getting ready to go to a session, you're like looking at your watch, like, all right, I got a session to go to, but I'm having this extremely engaging conversation with someone that I just met, and I'm learning a lot of things about their systems and their practices and things like that. It's okay to sometimes, you might feel guilty, but it's okay to skip a session every now and then if it means that you're already involved, because honestly, I feel like the sessions are the meat. Yes, that is it. But it's all that other stuff. I mean, and I think I've gotten so much out of both the sessions and the conversations. Don't just feel like you have to go to every session back to back to back. Make time to digest, to reflect. I think we don't do that enough. Like take a moment to say every day, what's one or two things I learned? Because if you pick up one or two things a day, that to me is a successful event. And so whenever I send my staff to them, I've always said, guys, don't feel like you have to cram everything in all in one day. Go to the things you're interested in, but then also take time to digest it. Think about how you're going to apply it, because that's a big part of why this is successful. So with that,
we need to find an expert on this whole thing.
Know anybody? Yeah. Hey, look, everybody! It's the CEO of ISTE. It's Richard Culatta. Welcome to the show.
Hey,
You're so happy. The event is over. Of course, we're recording this, guys. Just full transparency. About 2 weeks before the event ends,
and it was great. Everything worked exactly as we hoped.
I love it. Just putting that out there for the universe. So I'll ask you the same question, because you're someone who's helping organize, and of course, ISTE does lots of things more than just this ISTE Live. We should point that out. But when you attend something, what's something like if you're going to a conference, you're trying to pick something up out of it. A lot of times, all of us are presenters, but sometimes we're also attendees. How do you make the most out of your conference experience?
Well, I actually thought the advice that you both gave was just fantastic, and so I agree with both of those things. I think the one thing that I would add is there is a lot of space where we often say at ISTE we very meticulously engineer serendipitous moments, right?
I love it.
We tee up things like playgrounds, like meeting spaces, meetups, because we want a lot of those interactions to happen in that in that white space that you talked about. So take advantage of that too, right? Sometimes we go to an event and we're like, well, it's everything that's on the printed program. And there's also a whole lot of stuff that's happening that's of value that happens on the edges. And one thing that I'll add that I think is unique to ISTE Live, I don't know, I've never seen it at another event, and I go to a lot of events, is we have something called the design desk. And this is basically like the Genius Bar, and anybody can come up to it. It's right by registration, and you can come and say, hey, help me plan my time here. And you'll have experts that know the program inside and out, and they'll say, what do you want? What are you interested in? And they will actually help you create a plan, a program that aligns with your needs. It's really awesome. So take advantage of that too.
A concierge of sorts.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
So let me ask you this. So full transparency, I'm also an ISTE board member for all our listeners out there. I think we've talked about this a little bit on our season. So, yeah, no pressure here. But as far as you get
step it up a little on my answer.
So this year, for those of you who've been living under a rock, this is the first time we were going live with in-person ISTE in a couple of years. We've had, I don't know, this little thing called COVID-19 that's kind of put a halt on a lot of things. So for everyone that is attending this year, what is something that you're most excited about that we're able to bring to ISTE Live this year that we haven't? I know you mentioned the Genius Bar, the concierge bar kind of concept there, but what are some other things that we're bringing into the table this year?
Can I go? A couple things that I'm really excited about. One is this is the first year that we're going to have a VR experience. And so we'll have, for anybody who's not experienced immersive VR, you'll be able to sign up and see a curated set of VR experiences that you can actually do in person. That's going to be a really fun one. Another thing that we have going this year is we're actually doing look, see right there. That's it.
And I can thank you for this because after you made me step out of the elevator, I had to go get me one. So thank you, Richard, for this.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I did. I had him jump off a plank in an elevator. It was great. The other thing is that we have an esports event. So a lot of people have been saying, hey, what's this? What's going on with esports? What do we need to know? What is the deal? So we're actually hosting some esports events with people actually playing, right? We'll have people in there playing. So come and learn about esports. That's one that I'm super excited about. And then I would say if there was, one more thing that I could pick, we will have some really fantastic playgrounds. We call them, if you're not familiar, and these are where people are just showing demos of really great things that they have discovered. And so go spend some time at those playgrounds, and you'll be blown away with some of the really cool ideas that people have come up with during these 3 years of forced creativity.
So I immediately went Squid Games when he said playgrounds, like red light, green light. No truth to the rumor that there's going to be a Squid Games experience there. We're saving that for 23, folks. That's for Philly. So what? Tell us something, maybe for the folks out there. Give us a little sneak peek. What's something that goes on behind the scenes at ISTE Live that maybe people don't know about? Because we see the front end of it a lot of times, but there's a ton of work going on behind the scenes from the programming to the scheduling and people. And I know for a fact, running events, there's people that drop out and you have to, switch things quickly. What's maybe a little nugget or something? Give us a little sneak peek. What's something that's happening on behind the scenes that maybe you or your crew is working on kind of nonstop during these events? Because again, it's been a few years. So you got to brush up the
There certainly are, and more so this year. Some last minute speaker shifts as somebody either has gotten sick or something else has come up, right? So we're always kind of shuffling that around and making sure that we always have a full deck. The other things that we run into too are just technical logistics, right? So remember, when you show up at ISTE Live and it's great and it's amazing and we have everything there, a day before, none of that stuff was there, right? So everything is built. The stage is built. It's all built. And so there's a lot of logistics. The move in and load out is just unbelievable. Someday we should have you come in and do a documentary of what that looks like, right? Yes. But I
can see that on Netflix. There we go.
Totally.
So behind the ISTE Live. That's
So this year we decided we wanted to try something. So the stage is actually going to be an LED screen. So our main stage will have a screen behind like we normally do, and the stage that we walk on will also be a massive, 80-foot screen. And so that's really fun.
And real quick, as soon as you said that, I just thought Billie Jean.
That's what I was thinking.
now I
Why
gotta
did
work
our
that
heads
in.
went
Now
to the
you
same?
said
We got to
that.
work that in. You got to have it
Oh,
lined
Yes.
up while you step on it.
So
Good time.
it's interesting, as we're working with our team, and we're like, well, here's what's going to go on the background, and part of it is like, cool, and like, what's going on the floor, right? That's not normally a question that you have to do when you're preparing your presentations, right? So that's just one other interesting little bit of logistics that we're working with this year.
And you've also got programming that's online. So it's because again, and I don't know how much of this, and I'd be curious to hear your point of view on this. How much of this comes back? I mean, we're not out. I don't know that we'll ever be out of COVID. There's always gonna be some sort of endemic kind of response to it, but I feel like the peak we're out of. We've got mostly vaccinated, and people are getting better about keeping distance and things like that. But in terms of that hybrid event, I mean, I knew we're running it this year, and we were a part of ISTE Live. Adam and I had a session, ISTE Live 21, which is all online. Which is kind of cool too, because people that couldn't go before were able to go. Do you think this is like the way that the event's going to go forever, or you just think like, well, we'll see how this kind of goes, and maybe offer some sort of virtual option? Because you've always had the archive stuff.
It's hard in the world that we're in to say anything forever, right?
That's true. Yeah.
But I mean, we do think that that hybrid events are here to stay, and we've made a very deliberate decision. So sometimes when you have online events that are also part of a face-to-face event, somebody just like sticks a camera in the background and in the back of the room, and they just sort of record what's happening. And we made a very conscious decision that we did not want to do that. And so what that means is that we are having a truly hybrid event, meaning that there will be speakers and engagements that happen only in the virtual space. There will then be some that happen only in the face-to-face, the physical space in New Orleans, and then some that will be kind of mashed up in some interesting ways. And so what it means is if you're joining on the virtual side, it will feel like a curated, excellent virtual event, not like somebody's just holding the camera in the back of a face-to-face event that everybody else got invited to.
Yeah. I think we've all been a part of some of those over the past 3 years where it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I was most excited about the speaker cam feature where you put the GoPro on the speaker's head and you can view it just like an NFL football game. Look at the view from the stage, folks. This is a new thing. Just exciting things. If you didn't see it, it was that one session, guys. As you're listening to this podcast, you might have missed it.
So here's the question. So, we've talked a little bit about ISTE Live, but as we mentioned at the onset of this, ISTE is more than just ISTE Live. And that's one thing that I've said before. Being a board member, I've kind of seen more and more of it. Now I'm like, okay, wow, there's a lot of different facets of the organization. So let me ask you this: coming out of the pandemic, what are you most excited about ISTE as an organization as far as next steps of where ISTE is going? Because we know there's been billions of dollars pumped into education, billions of that earmarked specifically for technology, connectivity. We've seen a lot of new startups, as you mentioned earlier, innovation. So how has ISTE prepared to really support education globally moving forward with this?
Oh, that's a great question. So let me give you two things. One of them is the great news, the silver lining of pandemic, if there is one, is it has forced a major leap forward in terms of infrastructure in schools, right?
Yes.
Just access devices. Latest data I saw showed we're over 90% of schools are one-to-one, right? Which is a huge step forward. It was like 50% before COVID. And a lot of the focus has been on the connectivity. I don't know if you've ever coached kids soccer before. I had the chance to do that once, and it's just a hilarious opportunity because you have this ball wherever it is on the field or off the field, and there's just like gang of kids like all falling wherever the ball is. This like group of kids is falling around, and then there's these huge parts of the field where nobody's playing. And I feel like that describes a little bit where we're at right now, where there's so much attention on connectivity, and that's great. I'm glad that we're working on that, but part of what we're saying at ISTE is like, hey, y'all, if you don't figure out how to use this stuff right in this big open part of the field, then all of that connectivity that you're running after doesn't really amount to much. And in fact, some cases can be a step in the wrong direction. So that's where we're really doing a lot of focus. We have our ISTE certification program. We have ISTE U, which is some really fantastic online learning, just trying to say, hey, the people side of this, right? Yep, get the devices, get the routers, get that all going. But if you don't get the people side right, if teachers and leaders aren't prepared to use technology in like amazing ways, then it doesn't amount to much. So that's where we're spending a lot of time. And I hope that we can help shift that narrative a bit and get the focus on that side of it as well.
And if I could follow up with that, so I know one thing we talked with a guest previously, and they were telling us how if you weren't teaching before the pandemic, then you need to almost go back to school and learn how to teach during the pandemic or teach digitally. So with that being said, I guess kind of adding to that, what or if anything, if you can kind of share with us, does ISTE kind of have in place to really support that post-secondary and that teacher preparation pipeline? They have those educators ready to support, because, we talk about that empty space that nobody's playing in. So what can we do to get these teachers that are coming in ready to do that?
So it's almost like some of the cool stuff that we're doing, Adam.
Behind the scenes.
Listen, this is awesome. I'm glad you brought that up. So one of the challenges is that we have all these new teachers coming in, and we have school leaders, we have district leaders, superintendents that have reached out to me and said, "Look, we know we got to get our faculty up to speed and we know that, but we can't then also have new teachers coming in, brand new teachers right off the line, right out of schools of education that have absolutely no idea how to use technology effectively in the classroom, which is what's happening today." So we recently, just last week, launched a pledge with the U.S. Department of Education and a number of other organizations for educator prep programs, teacher prep programs to sign on to. And it commits them to 5 actions that they can take to help make sure new teachers that are coming in, out of their programs into the classroom are prepared for the digital world that we live in post-COVID. There are things like making sure they know how to apply the ISTE standards, making sure they understand how to use technology for their own ongoing professional learning, making sure that the faculty that they have in their teacher prep programs are modeling effective use of technology. And so we have about 40 schools that have signed on already, really excited, looking for some more to join. And we hope we can get a bit of an avalanche going, right? A little bit of a momentum. Right. And really shift the model of how we've been doing teacher prep to be much more focused on the realities of the digital world.
And you have that unique background too, because you have the background in the federal government before ISTE. What's ISTE's role? And you just mentioned there's already a partnership happening with the Department of Ed, which is awesome, in terms of just advocacy in general, like with equity and ECF funds and ESSER funds. And what do you see, or what's your vision for that role in terms of working with not only the federal government but also state governments? Because like here in Texas, it's a little wild westy. Let's just say that. And in Adams State, he's got Georgia, and then of course we got Florida, which is always sort of fun. So how do you what do you see as the ISTE's role in all that in terms of advocacy, not just the connectivity part, which is important too, but beyond that?
Yeah, and it's important that you mentioned that. So when you think about teacher learning and their sort of teacher professional learning, that almost all of that happens at the state level, not at the federal level, right? And so it's very important that we have these connections at the states. Some states are doing some amazing things, and we work closely with any state that wants to work with us. Some take advantage of that more than others. We have some very exciting news coming out of North Carolina. North Carolina just made a decision that the state of North Carolina will cover the cost of any teacher in North Carolina that wants to become an ISTE member.
Wow.
So that's huge. Any teacher, there's 140,000 teachers in North Carolina. Any one of them that wants to become an ISTE member, the state has said, we got you covered. That's how important they feel it is that they have that opportunity. We have some other states too that we're working with doing similar things. I probably can't announce them quite yet, but there'll be some others coming down the road where the states have said, "Look, we want to make this happen. We're going to help either providing certification or providing memberships that they're going to help cover the cost of," and that's really great.
That's a teaser in the business, folks. You heard that right there.
There it is. It's a
teaser. teaser. So, for the listeners, how long have you served in the role as the CEO of ISTE?
So it's hard to believe. I am coming on my 5th year here at ISTE, and it's strange because I think the last couple of years for everybody are just in like a weird.
It's like 10 years long, yeah.
Yes, I mean it's funny because some days I'm like, I feel like I've been doing this forever, and then most of the time I'm like, I kind of feel like I'm still the new guy, right? So it's just funny how this weird time warp happened. But yes, I have been at ISTE for almost 5 years. It's been just an amazing chance for me. I've loved it. We have our team is unbelievable, you guys. We have an amazing team, and so I just get to work with some of the smartest people that I've ever worked with before. And so I've loved every minute of my time here.
Okay,
working with
so
the
going
publishing.
so going with
Go ahead.
that 5 year piece. So I know they always say shows jump the shark when they start dealing with time travel. But we're going to do that anyway. We're not jumping the shark here. Let's go in this time machine, quantum realm, if you will, and go talk to Richard Culatta 5 years ago. What piece of advice do you give him taking this job that you have right now? So what piece of information do you give him?
Buy stock in Pfizer. I mean, that's the
Not Bitcoin, not at the moment, but maybe then.
No,
maybe
right.
then.
Maybe Exxon.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think one of the things that, we knew this even without ever knowing the pandemic was coming. I couldn't have spelled COVID, right, when I first took this job. But when I showed up and I started talking with teachers and leaders in schools, I kind of went on a bit of a listening tour. And one of the things that we heard loud and clear was, it's great that ISTE provides great events. We love ISTE Live. We love Creative Constructor, right? These are great. And no matter how awesome an event is, it's only 3 to 4 days. And the rest of that year, we still need help and support, and there's things to learn. And so that's really what pushed us to develop things like ISTE, so that we had opportunities for learning at any time, right? Any time of the year. Now, we did that just because we heard from teachers that that's what they wanted. No idea that there would be, we wouldn't even dream that we would have had to pull the plug on our face-to-face events for 3 years. It would have been, if I had said that, people would have laughed me out of the room. And so that was one of the things that we did. I think if I could have, talked to my past self, I would have said, do it faster, drop any other thing and get, more courses up online. So we hit a sweet spot, but even more of that, just really making sure that we can be helpful, providing learning experience, providing community in virtual spaces just as much as in physical spaces is really kind of the lesson learned from the last few years.
Well, then let's keep the time machine, Adam. Since you've wheeled it out, we're going to keep it, but we're going to go the opposite direction. Now we're going to the future. Oh. And Richard, you're one of these people that I admire and talk about all the time with ripple effects. Whenever I tell people, like teachers, I tell them you have a ripple effect. Those students you're interacting with, that effect can last them for years. You have giant ripples. You've had a lot of effect on the country, in the organization. So I'm going to flash forward to your last day. You don't know when this is, and hopefully it's not for a long time. When you look back, what do you want your legacy to be in terms of the organization, in terms of what you've done in this country? What would you like that legacy to be?
Wow. Ooh, that's a good one.
I'm going deep.
There's a couple things that I think about. One is, I'm going to share 3 things that I think about constantly, right? One is, and as much as we focus on, we want to make sure teachers are prepared and feel like they're supported, and we absolutely do. There's only so much we can do if the quality of ed tech tools and products aren't what we need them to be. And that's not on teachers, that's on companies. And so one of the things that I'd like to do, and we're already starting to do this, but I will, I'm committed to doing more of this, is building a tighter relationship between the people who are building the tools and apps that we use and the educators that are part of the ISTE community. There's still too much, here's the product that we've built, now use it, right? Yeah. And it needs to be much more of, what do you need? Can we build it for you? What do you think? Can you revise it? It's got to be more of a back and forth. And so that's something that I'm really committed to do. That we have good products out there, but we should have like amazing, mind-blowing products out there. Right. So that's thing one. Thing two is, I really want to shift the conversation nationally when it comes to how we're preparing young people to thrive in this digital world. Mm-hmm. The way we talk about digital citizenship now is still very negative. It's still the list of don'ts, right? All the things not to do. It's still very focused on online safety. And of course we care about online safety, but again, I want kids who are amazing leaders and know how to invent and problem solve and collaborate in the digital world, not just be safe. And so that's a second thing that I really care about. And if I could throw one more in there, it would be this. I'm really worried that we have lost some of the joy in learning. And so I hope that I can do a small part and bring on as many people as we can and say, how do we bring joy back to learning? It has to be a joyful experience. It has to be an exciting experience. that doesn't minimize or sidestep the fact that there has been major disruption and some real trauma over the last couple years. But interestingly enough, one of the best ways to get out of that is to have joy and creativity infused throughout learning. So those are three of the metrics that I hope, the community holds me to. I certainly will hold myself to over the next, 5 years.
I 100%, 1000% agree on the joy part. That's like my mission in life. And by the way, your second point, you put your money where your mouth is, because you've also written a book called Digital for Good, Raising Kids to Thrive in an Online World, which is I've read the book. It's a very positive leaning book. It's not like you said, the gotcha, oh, don't do this, don't do that. It's like, here's how we can make this a great experience for everybody. Because, we're planting the seeds now and trees that we may not be able to sit under the shade of in our, later life. So we got to keep growing those seeds. Thank you for that. I love those comments.
Yeah, I love that first point that you mentioned. That first point there was one that I say all the time to folks, and we love our vendors out there, but I think education is one of those fields where the vendor makes the tools, and very often we adapt our practices to the tool that's there versus the tool that is created because we tell them this is what we need. As a tech director, I know I've been in many situations where I'm talking with the vendor, like, okay, we need to do this based on what the state's asking us to do. And they're like, well, our tool doesn't do that. We could do it, and it costs you more money to do. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely feel you on that. And on your last point, you brought up something which kind of leads into the toughest question that we always ask our guests. And very oftentimes, this is why some of their podcasts don't get aired, because they can't answer this question. But I know you can. I have faith in you, sir. Here is the question. With everything that's been going on, with the conference on your shoulders, being the CEO of a major organization, sir, what do you do to keep undisrupted? Because all these things are going to disrupt you in life. Everything, all these things have been thrown at you. How do you stay from being disrupted? What keeps you undisrupted, sir?
That is quite the question. I think there is so much amazing stuff that happens in the education world that doesn't get captured. The story doesn't get told. We know of everything that's falling apart. We know of teachers leaving. We know all any headline that you see just leads you into depression the second you type education news in
Yes.
Google, and you're going to just be depressed for the next couple hours. But what's amazing is that in spite of all of that, I have had this kind of backstage view to seeing ridiculous amounts of innovation and creativity. And so I think what keeps me undisrupted is a drive to tell those stories and to be able, because I know any school I visit, somewhere in there, I'm going to find another 2 or 3 amazing ideas that nobody has been talking about. And I'm like, sweet, I just saw those backstage and I get to share those with other people. And that sort of fuels me through the slog of the other tough stuff that we have to deal with.
Well, I'm glad you didn't answer what Adam does, because what Adam does is he has an OnlyFans page. It's called Adam's Knuckles, and it's about his knuckles. It's just pictures of his knuckles.
Yes,
but he's making good money on
knuckles.
The side. Because
Don't tell the other board members. I don't know.
No.
I'm totally doing this right now.
We are making this up as we go, actually, because it's now an Easter egg that we hide in every podcast. But I want to thank you guys. This is Richard Culatta. He's the CEO of ISTE. ISTE Live is happening right now while you're listening to this podcast. It's wrapping up the final day. You can find him on Twitter at @rculatta. And of course, check out his book too, Digital for Good, Raising Kids to Thrive in an Online World. Thank you for joining us. And for our listeners out there, be sure to subscribe, give us a review. We'd appreciate it. We might even give you a shout out on a future show. This has been the UnDisrupted Podcast, brought to you by Future Ready Schools. He's Adam, and you can follow him on Twitter at AskAdam3.
And ladies and gentlemen, he's Carl, and you can follow him at Mr. Hooker. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, we are better together.
And we are better
undisrupted.